Welcome back to another episode of the Photographer's Journey podcast. Today I'm out here, I guess on location, more at your house, with Shandy Gregg. It's great to meet you. First time I've actually met you.
Yeah,
Seen
you
your work
too.
on Instagram. Yeah, so let's just jump into it. You're a family photographer, wedding photographer, seniors, I guess, like high school portraits. It says product lines on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was an accident. Well, I
Oh,
do actually. I do some.
some,
Yeah,
okay, but that's not your
yeah. That's not really a
main focus.
specialty. Actually, I did a product shoot yesterday for a friend,
Okay.
but it's not something that I feel too comfortable in. If that
Uh,
makes sense, you know.
Yeah, I got
It's
you. Yeah,
it's an
we all have
improvisation
our
thing. Yeah,
specialties.
yeah.
So we'll get into more of that a little bit later. But I guess we'll start off. You just talked about. I know you and some other people went to that SpaceX launch,
Yes.
and you drove all the way there. Is that right?
Uh huh. Yeah.
And nothing happened.
Nothing happened. That's the second time I've done that. Actually, we drove. That was 10 years ago. When was I think that's how long ago it was when the last space shuttle launched. We drove over
Was
there
it
and it
that
got
long?
it got canceled and we missed it. And so this one, I'm not a huge science nerd, but I have friends that went with us that are, and so let's go on a road trip and just see if we can catch it again. And I happen to have some friends that live over by Titusville, so I called them. I'm like, "Where's a good spot to go?" And it was good. We got in there and we had plenty of time. We were set up on the part, and but you could see the storms coming in. You knew it
Yeah.
was probably going to get canceled, and um, when it did, we tried to get out of there quickly, but the traffic was it was terrible.
From a photographer's perspective, what does that feel like to be so excited for a shoot or to go get this like one picture, whether it be the space shuttle or a landscape, sunrise?
Yeah,
But,
I use space as an example. I don't really have long telephoto lenses, and so to go over there and take a picture, I think I measured we were 9 miles away. We could see the actual launch site across the river, and I just happened that my cousin gave me some old vintage lenses, and I bought an adapter, and one of them was a 200 millimeter, so I adapted on my Sony A6500, which is crop sensor, so it gives it a little more
oh,
range,
it gives you
probably
that
like
punch in, yeah.
320 or so, and but it's manual focus, so I wasn't I didn't have high expectations what they were going to look like. I was kind of envious because standing around, I saw some photographers with some really
Those
large lenses, and
zoom lenses, yeah.
they probably 400 or 600 millimeter lenses, and those
Yeah.
are quite expensive. I did look up some launch pictures before I left, and so there was a part of me that would like to get some of those nice ones, but it's not what I normally run. But it's fun going over there. As far as other things, I mean, it's exciting to get up. When I first started photography, it was when I first started like really getting into photography about 6 years ago. I bought a Nikon D5500 at Best Buy, a kit lens, and it took me a while to convince my wife to
Was
let
that
me get it.
the kit lens was detachable?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like an 18 to 55, 4.5 to
Yeah.
6.5 or 5.6 lens, and I just felt like I'd always, everywhere I'd gone, I could see things differently. I would always, this looks like it'd be a cool picture kind of mentality. So I told my wife, I'm like, I want to get a camera, and she's like, it's, the common argument, it's too expensive, it's a waste of money.
You're gonna use it once.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna use, and so, I was looking back in my garage one day, and I had some pictures from me as a kid, all the way through in the military, and I'd had boxes of pictures, and so I realized, I'm like, I've always been taking pictures. I never, saw that as equated that as being an actual photographer. I just had a love for pictures, and so that strengthened my argument a little bit more.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
so I went back and I'm like, listen, I really want this camera, and didn't know anything about cameras, didn't know what kind to get, and so I got the one on sale, and it went from there. So I had that, when I'd go out, I was so excited. Everywhere it was like an opportunity to take a picture, and
Yeah.
everything became exciting. Sunsets, sunrises, you name it, weather. I'd take pictures of anything. I didn't care. You build your confidence and move up from there.
And then from there, you probably upgraded to another camera at
Well,
a certain
my next
point.
one was a Nikon D7100, and I was excited because then I got like a 70 to 300 lens, and I bought it used off Craigslist, and then I thought I was a wildlife photographer, so I went through that phase, and I have some actually really interesting pictures. My front window, we had a bird feeder out front, and the squirrels would get on it. So I'd sit in my living room and take
So you
pictures through
just
the
set
front
up.
window.
Nice, and you can be in the AC
Yeah,
for
I
that.
could be inside. And then my next camera was a Nikon D610. That was my first full frame camera. And then I felt like I was a professional. That's a natural progression up.
The full frame, yeah.
And then I went to the D750, and these were all bought used. I would just find good deals online, and then get lenses throughout the way. And then that was about the time Sony started getting big. I just one day, I don't know why, I just sold all my Nikon gear, bought a Sony A7. That's my first one. I still have it, in there.
Oh, wow.
And just went from there. Bought 35 millimeter lens and 85 millimeter, which is the basis for doing a lot of portrait and wedding photography. That's the two, if you like primes.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, I bought a Sony A7 III. I pre-ordered that when it came out. I still use that a lot. That's my current setup.
Nice.
I'm pretty simple now.
Simple
I just have those
yeah.
two, and then I got a 28 to 75 Tamron, Nikon 16 to 35. Or I'm sorry, Sony 16 to 35, not the G Master, just the f4, and some old vintage lenses I started playing around with.
It's great for cinematography too. If
Is
you
it?
talked about getting into video, I mean,
I definitely will
it's
have
a
to
way
use
to
it for
make
that.
your footage look a little more aged, or like it's not so
Okay.
sharp. And
Yeah, I'll have to remember that.
and you're talking about your box of pictures of you in the Navy, right?
Yep.
So you served for
I was in the Navy
4 years?
for 4 years.
Okay.
I went in like 3 days after I graduated high school.
Oh, so it was
Yeah,
just straight.
it was
High
straight. I
school?
had to. I was a really really bad kid,
Uh,
and it's a long story how I went in, but uh, I didn't really know my dad growing up a lot, and I lived with him this summer before my senior year because I was kind of in between homes, and he made me go down and join. And so then I thought, so for my whole senior year, I was basically delayed entry program. And then I didn't want to go in, but I thought if I didn't, they were going to throw me in jail, which wasn't the truth. But so then I went in, and it was a rough transition. Like I was in trouble a lot my first couple of years in the military. It took a lot of growing up. Um, but you know what? It was a great, great, great thing. It was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me because it allowed me to grow. Um, like if you would look back and my friends that I'm still friends with from high school now still can't believe that I'm actually a teacher, or because I was that kid in high
you're
school
the trouble
who
kid.
was always in trouble and misguided and doing stupid things. I hated going to school, and so that the
Same.
military allowed me to grow up a little bit. And
Yeah.
when I was in, a buddy of mine gave me an old film camera. I don't even remember what it was now, and but I have some pictures in a box. Like I went to Desert Storm. I was in Desert Shield and then went back to Desert Storm.
Oh,
So we
wow.
were going through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea, and I have pictures of the sand and people walking through. I mean, so I just took all random pictures back then, and it wasn't like now where you can just go in and edit 1,000 of them easily. It was actually the film. You had to go get it processed. But looking back, yeah, I was like, wow, I actually took a lot of pictures back then. I must not have remembered that. I need to get. I've had a lot of hobbies in my life, but that one was the one that really kind of inspired me to get up in the morning and go do something, or go out in the evening and try to catch a cool sunset.
Yeah, it's important. You need to
Yeah.
have that motivation.
Yep.
And so after the Navy, you transferred into being a behavioral specialist in
Well,
schools?
I
Or?
after I got out of the Navy, well, yeah, right after I got out of the Navy, I was living in Jacksonville, and
Okay, cool. I went to school in St. Augustine.
oh, okay, yeah, I lived in I was in and out of St. Augustine for a while, and I uh, I came up here on vacation one weekend and met my wife at a baseball game. And it was history from there. I ended up moving here. I was failing miserably in college. I was still not very mature when I came out of the Navy, and I was bartending, which is a bad career for young people because it was just too much alcohol and too much money. And
Yeah.
so when I met my wife, I think I was taking 4 or 5 classes. I was failing every one of them. I was at Florida Community College in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And so I moved here with her after dating for a while, and I started bartending here in Seminole. And I basically just had, her dad told me, he's like, you're going to have to grow up at some point. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. You're right. And so I started going to St. Pete Junior College then, and just stop playing around. And then my wife got pregnant with our son, and so I really had to grow up then. So I went to USF, got my degree in behavior disorders, and started teaching ESE students basically. So I taught for 4 years, and then 6 years, and then became a behavior specialist.
Oh wow. And so what does that kind of entail? I mean, I guess I could guess what behavioral specialist
Well,
is, but
basically, you're just a coach, and so if there's a kid having problems in a classroom, you got to go in and your end goal is to make sure the kid's not missing instruction. So the easy thing to say is, well, the kid's just being bad, but that's not, it's not ever that easy. Sometimes it's the teacher, sometimes it's a bad mix of the student and the teacher, sometimes it's a mix of the kids around. So you have to really investigate and figure out, like, why is this kid not in class when they need to be. And coming from my background, I was never in class. I fully understand. It's taken me years, but I've built those relationships, and I speak everybody's language. I'm like, I understand what you're going through. I went through it, and look at me. You can be successful. You just
yeah,
have to give yourself time.
kind of
I mean,
take time to figure out what you want to do.
you do. And that my biggest push because I'm in high school now is, not all of our kids need to go to college right off the bat. I didn't. There's no way I'd have made it out of college. And we need, push more trades for our kids, get them into plumbing and AC and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made there, and it's an honest career, and
I
keep them off the
completely
streets.
agree with that.
If you're not on the track to do a certain thing, or you're not passing this testing, then you're not worthwhile.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of kids who leave could have diplomas because they didn't pass a test, and they still can be a productive citizen. But without that diploma, they can't.
hmm
So it's a thing that the system has to fix.
So kind of jumping ahead. So you've been doing the behavioral specialist for like 10 years, and on your LinkedIn it says you're an assistant principal now.
I was an assistant principal. Yeah, yeah. I did it for 6 years. I went and got my master's in ed leadership and educational leadership, and I was assistant principal at an alternative high school over in Clearwater, and it was a great time. Like, the problem is, it takes a toll on you. You don't realize. I mean, I've lost most of it now. I gained almost 50 pounds. I was very unhealthy, stressed. I didn't, you talk about photography being a hobby and being fun. I didn't do any of that. Didn't take any more pictures. I mean, you basically just let go of all the fun things in life,
It's
and
kind
you're
of
just job focused all the time.
so you're
It,
just at work, and
it's a
then you
very
come home
cutthroat
and
kind of job, and you know, moving on from that back to what I used to do has been the biggest blessing, because now I spend more time on me. Like, I went for a 27-mile bike ride this morning, and
that's
I'm trying to be healthy and be happy, and I
yeah,
am there. You know what I mean? Like, it took me a little bit, but I got back to where I needed to be.
that's
But a lot of
good.
people don't realize that. You know what I mean? Like, you can get in positions where, and I know people very personally that are like this, that they sacrifice their health for their work, and it's a tough road once you start letting the doctors take over for you.
Yeah,
It's
that's
hard to
always
come out
been
of
a
that.
tough balance. I'm very much a workaholic,
Yeah,
so I'm always editing or doing something on the weekend.
but you work out a lot too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've noticed. So in college, I would run all the time, work
yeah,
out, do stuff on like dips and push-ups
yeah,
off the benches and stuff. Never really a normal gym. Yeah, when I was that healthy, that's when I was like had the hustle and drive.
and you're creative.
And so after college, I just kind of lost that drive. On like
Yeah,
everybody
I understand it
disperses.
fully. Yeah, I went through it 4 years ago. I went to the doctor, and I weighed 252. My doctor told me that I'm on my way to being a diabetic. My blood pressure was out of control. I mean, all the numbers that they do blood work on were way out of whack. And I've had my doctor for probably 24 years now, for a long time. And so, she's very frank with me. And she said, I'm going to give you 3 months to fix it on your own, or I'm going to take over. And so I just took it as a challenge. I said, all right. And I just started, I mean, not making major changes. I'm not like a keto person, or, you know, I
Yeah,
just started, I only drink water. I don't drink sodas or tea or anything. Um, and I just started finding exercises that I could relate to or I like doing. I can't go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sit there for an hour and pump weights. But I've got to the point where I can do bike rides, and I enjoy that. So
Yeah.
I've learned if I ride 10 miles away, then I have to ride 10 miles home.
Yep.
So that, and then I've networked with people who ride also. And so this morning I did a group ride. It was all veterans, and
Okay.
and we do every Thursday night and every Saturday morning.
That's
So
cool.
the camaraderie helps too. Like,
Yeah.
Thursday night I wasn't really feeling like going, but I knew the group was there. But like, that entices you to
The
exercise a
group.
little more.
Yeah.
I enjoyed aspects of CrossFit. I was not that level of an athlete though, and you know, very inspiring people in that gym. Like, they were all super nice, but it didn't matter what. And I saw you doing Murph the other day, where
Yeah.
it didn't matter what activity you're doing. I was always the last place guy, right? And so it's you can always tell yourself like, oh, I'll get better, but when you never move up the board, it's a little demoralizing after a while.
Yeah, I
And
can see that.
I got fit, and it was hard and it was tough. Um, but I ended up hurting my back at one point. I just never went back after that.
Now you're back to biking
Just
more
biking, yeah.
regularly.
And I actually, it's crazy. I just got hit by a car like right down the
I
street
was
here,
going
like
to ask.
2 weeks. I
I
mean,
couldn't.
about a month and a half ago.
I couldn't find anything. I was like, I know somebody said they got hit,
Yeah,
and I think it was
it
you.
was right. He was a block away. I just got done with a 30-mile bike ride, and I rode down the beach, and then I was coming down the sidewalk here, and there was a guy sitting at the stop sign, and it was, I thought he saw me, and I went to go in front of him, and he didn't see me. He just accelerated. Now, luckily,
No.
he hadn't been going that fast, but it did knock me into traffic, which, thank goodness, thank God the COVID thing was going on, because nobody was on the road, and I didn't get hit
Okay.
by anybody.
So
It
I
could have
thought
been
I saw.
worse.
Did you post you did go to the ER for
I
that?
did, yeah. I got my knees were scraped up and my hands are scraped up, and I still have. I don't know if I must have broke a bone or something in there. I didn't get it X-rayed, but for the most part, I was fine.
Okay.
I landed and slid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it could have been way worse.
from my timeline, I remember seeing somebody posted that, and then like the next weekend you posted, did another 20-mile bike ride. I'm like, this
Well,
dude was just in the hospital.
once I kind of everything healed up. I mean, nothing was broken, so I was like, I can't lose the momentum I've been carrying,
Yeah.
because I know me. If I stop doing it for a while, I'll probably stop doing it even longer. So I gotta. It's
That's
just this forceful thing of getting on there and keeping going.
Yeah. So I'm curious. 'Cause I'm getting back into bike riding because running takes an impact on my legs
Yep.
after a while. Has nothing to do with photography, but you said you do those groups. I've always been curious how you stay in pace and like you make sure you're not that idiot that's gonna make everybody crash, because I
Listen,
know that would be
I'm
me.
no professional by any means, and sometimes I think like I'm the worst person in the group because but you're not. You think you are, but So when you're in a group, basically, if you're doing 2x2, which some groups do, you just get behind the person in front of you and you stay that pace that they're going. And that's really hard to do because, like, I lose focus and I'll be looking over here, and then the guy slowed down and I slam on my brakes and it makes everybody else. So I am that guy at times. So
Okay.
that's why sometimes I'll ride in the very back so I don't have to pay attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can stare at all the other things, and if I do something wrong, it doesn't affect everybody. But really, knock on wood, I haven't had a problem in a group yet. You just basically get in there and watch what everybody else is doing, and don't, And what happens is usually on an organized group, the front two people will pull off. They just rotate through, so you're not always doing all the pulling.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I do
Yeah.
a lot of riding by myself though, a lot. So
Okay.
it's a great group. Like, it's just a very welcome group. Like I said, mostly all veterans, and every year there's a ride called the Honor Ride, and so the money goes to help wounded veterans, and it's
Oh, that's awesome.
usually February. They ride out of the truck, and they have like a 20-mile ride, a 40-mile ride, and a 60-mile ride.
I'm gonna pause this there to
Please
restart the
go
camera.
ahead.
Yes, I got a psychology. Went for psychology, and after that first semester, I realized they had a media production department,
Uh huh.
which was like my dream was to make video into a hobby.
Well, good.
So I just started there and bothered literally everybody. There was the club night. I was like, "Do you need a video guy? I can make the video."
But that's how you do it.
Yeah,
That's the hustle right there.
yeah. And I was just so
That's how you learn.
energetic.
That's how I was when I started with photography, but I didn't bother other people. I just watched every YouTube video I could find. Like, I would just obsessively sit there at night and watch YouTube videos, and then I would learn, like, See, I got lucky too. When I first started on photography, I started in manual mode. And when a lot of people will start in the program modes and have to work their
Mm-hmm.
way out, I just had read an article about it as soon as I bought my camera, and I got lucky. He clued me in, so I just started learning more about aperture and shutters, and so the learning curve once I got that part wasn't as steep. But I would like right now I'm on this editing kick, and I sat here this morning. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I don't normally wake up that early, but I woke up and I'm just sitting there watching. And I've used Lightroom for I don't know 6 or 7 years now, however long it's been out. 6 years, how long I've been editing, and I still don't know everything about it. And so I've sat here this morning watching videos on how this certain person edits in Lightroom and how this certain person edits in Lightroom, and so then I go back and I find old pictures that I've taken and I re-edit them, and I look back to see like wow, that looks so much more amazing now. But it's sad
Yeah.
because like I'll even do this on my Instagram feed. I'll look back and I'm like, God, those pictures were terrible. Like, what was I thinking to post that? Why didn't somebody tell me they were so bad? But that's a learning process, and that's why I
Yeah.
love. Like I put all my pictures on like on Google Photos, so I can go back and look like because I don't keep them on Lightroom. I'll usually erase my catalogs after a while. It just takes too much space. And I don't need them all. Um,
Yeah, I just re-imported all my pictures from Brazil in
oh, did
2016,
you?
and it kept all the edits on there.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
there's some technology back there.
Well, I accidentally erased a catalog 2 months ago, and it had 18,000 pictures on it. And I don't know how I did it. Still, I had to call a friend of mine. I'm like, I think every one of my pictures are gone it was from last year. And at first I kind of freaked out. Then I realized, well, I have them stored other places. I don't, I realized like when I do a photo session, let's just say I shoot you and your family.
Yeah.
Once I give you the pictures, I don't need them anymore. Me storing them doesn't really serve a purpose. I mean, I'm just taking up space, and so like I said, the one I'll take your album and I'll send you the one, but then I'll store one on Google Photos as well, and and that's all I need to do,
Okay.
And so, but I do keep a couple, here and there, just like for these re-edits,
Mhm.
because I always like to look back, like, oh wow, like my thing lately is like these dark, moody edits, you know what I mean? And so I've been learning how people are taking the pictures and how it just looks so drastically different and so the tone curve is where a lot of my time has been spent lately.
Yeah.
Just
It's
relearning that. I would tell anybody who does photography that to never think that you're there. You know, that is
that's
the
very
biggest
true.
crime. Don't get comfortable.
Yes.
Because
The second you get comfortable too, that's kind of when you lose that
well,
motivation.
you get lazy
Yeah.
and you lose motivation and what happens is then it progresses so quickly at times. Technology progresses quickly, and that you don't realize how much it left you behind. And it's a tough field in certain ways because there's a lot of competition, and cell phones are amazing.
Yeah, I
And
know.
anybody with a Snapchat filter or Instagram filter now thinks they are a professional.
And when Snapchat came out with the face tracking, it just blew my mind. Like
Yeah,
as a visual effects artist, like you spend years kind of like learning how to do these like
isn't it crazy?
tracking in this advanced program that costs a lot of money, and then all of a sudden somebody puts
Poof,
these
there
dog
it
ears on
is.
their
Just
face.
imagine what it's gonna be like in 5 more years. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like I do real estate photography too, and I do 3D tours, like 360 tours. I have a 360 camera.
Okay.
Could you imagine if somebody years ago would have told you could have done it? Like it would have been hard to envision that you could do that. So just imagine what it's gonna be like in however many more years. It's just it's tough. You always got to stay on top of your game.
Yeah, and with mirrorless cameras too.
Yeah,
Like when I kind of took that stop and I was just video editing, I was like, oh, let me get back into it.
yeah,
And then you're like, what are all these cameras that everybody's like? I'm like, I have my 5D Mark II, and that's what I know. And I had to kind of learn what all this mirrorless
yeah,
is and
yeah. See, and I
stuff.
came in. I was really kind of learning as mirrorless came big, and that was a big jump. I did it because well, actually I skipped out a step. Before I went to Sony, I went to Fuji. I had a couple Fuji cameras, and I love. So to this day, I love Fuji. The colors on Fuji are amazing, but they're crop sensor. They're not full frame,
It's the
and
what 4:3 crop something.
well, yeah,
Or
it's just a smaller sensor size, and so instead of this kind of picture, you're going to get, which isn't a bad thing. People do very well with crop sensor,
yeah,
but in my mind back then, in order to be professional, you needed full frame,
yeah,
which is dumb, but it's in your infancy as a photographer, you think these things, just like you think. you have to have the most amazing gear, and then I see people with kit lenses do amazing stuff. So I mean, it really is how creative you are.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking about that earlier. With like, so many people say I want to start taking photos, taking video, or I want to start a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
but they don't, and I ask them why, and it's like, all I have is my phone.
You've
And,
envisioned the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You're not looking at your own creativity and what you can do with a minimal amount of
Like, I may
stuff
actually
you can
make that a YouTube episode. All I have is my phone. What can I do?
Yeah, you should do that actually. With me with photography, you were saying you took a break. What I didn't realize is that when I started out in photography, I just did it for fun, right? And then people would come to me, and there's probably a lot of people's progression. It's like, hey, can I pay you to do this? And it blew my mind at first. I'm like, first I thought, wow, I'm worthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, wow, I can buy more gear, which is the wrong thing to think. And so then I just started like, all right, yeah, I'll do this. And I would charge a friend $50. $50 I'll do your family pictures, but they may not be the best, right? And then
Fair.
I learned how to get some off-camera flash, and I spent a lot of time investigating that and purchasing a lot of that. And then I started growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I started learning how to advertise on Google and reaching out past that was always my goal. I'm like, if I'm going to make money at this, I got to reach out past my inner circle. I want my inner circle to, you know what I mean? Like, I want people to come to me that aren't friends. Maybe they saw it through a friend, and that's where it grows, but
word of mouth.
so now, I have people like on Google. They'll come into Madeira Beach for vacation, look for photographers, and they'll reach out to me. That was my next step of, all right, I've made it. I'm like, yeah, someone else from out of state thinks I'm good too. But I spent so much time doing that I forgot to have fun. And I think a lot of people learn that. Like, I have a really good friend of mine that lives in New York, and I do a lot of photo editing for her. She's a huge real estate photographer in upstate New York. And we just networked online over the time. We became really good friends. And so she brought me in and taught me her editing style and mentored me a lot. But I was telling her one day, I'm like, it's sad that I can't remember the last time I took a picture for fun. And I'm like, am I losing the love of it? Or did I kind of get caught up going down the wrong road, And so lately, it's just been, I still do the portrait, and people come to me on there, but I just try to focus more. And I use my phone a lot now, too.
Is that what I saw the recent one with the girl sitting down had the lights around? Was that more?
Oh, that was right in my garage too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that more of a fun one for you, or is that
Well, you know what it was? It's my neighbor's daughter down the street, and she's been my model over the years. Whenever I need somebody to practice, so sometimes I'll contact her like, hey, I got an idea. Let's go practice.
Yeah.
And so basically, what I did is I cleared out my garage. I moved all my stuff to my shed out back, and I made my garage a photo studio, a mini photo studio.
Yeah.
The best I could, and so I had some ideas of some things I wanted to try with her, and it actually turned out amazing. Like, wow, it's such a small space, and that's what you need to do a video on. Like, you don't need a huge studio. You can just have a little bit of space and some creativity, and that's where the fun kind of came back into it. Instead of like, somebody calling me and I want a family picture, and it's just the same. All right, I'm gonna get there and we'll do these poses. This was me really trying to break out and like, all right, I have this space and these lights. What can I get out of this? And on Amazon they had those their lights were like $6, little LED lights. I'm like, yeah, they're just a little strip of LED light. And so we just started playing with them. And actually, quite a few of those photos was a 60-year-old 50mm lens that I played around with. What I mean? So and actually, when I put it on my A6500, it makes it more like an 85mm. And so I sat in the back of my garage and we held the string and we played around with it, And so that was exciting because it was being creative.
Learning,
And not that doing family pictures aren't creative, but they're all kind of the same.
It's kind of the same process.
They're kind of the same process, and so you have to learn to instill that creativity back in, or you probably will lose it after a while. Like, you'll just lose the drive.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas behind this podcast too.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing the same thing over and over. Okay, I go in St. Pete, take street photos. You run out of ideas. So
and I do that too sometimes. When I want to be different, I will go take street photos. But I hate going out by myself. And so I'll contact people like, hey, you want to go, anybody, but I don't know a ton. I mean, I know some local photographers, but I don't know them that well.
Yeah.
But I can just call them up like, hey, you want to go? Actually, what excites me the most is this time of year is lightning photos. Like, I
I've seen so many posts.
love lightning photos. In the last couple of years, I didn't do it, but see now my job's changed. I have the summer off. This will be my first summer off in 8 years. Like I'm ready. I, I have everything ready, and I don't know if you ever you know Justin Battles.
I don't know the name.
He's a big lightning guy. He does wildlife and online too, but he inspired me way back in the day. He actually was big like on Fox 13. They did a whole thing on him, and that man does some time. He's like a firefighter in Tampa, and he travels all over the state getting lightning photos. And so I just reached out to him on Facebook. I'm like, hey, you know, can I, ask you some questions? He was so cool. He's like,
Yeah.
try this and this and this. And I met some other. I'd go out to Gandy, and I met a couple other people. Josh Harrington's one guy. Um, I just network. And I'm not afraid to talk to people, and so I just get out there and learn from other people now. But lightning and storm photos, love them, man. That's what excites me, I guess. And I bought a lightning trigger a few years ago. That's the best investment ever. I set that thing on my camera, and if it gets bad, I just go sit in my car. I'm like, I'm not getting struck by lightning. I don't want the pictures that bad. But it's nice because a storm would be rolling in at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm going. And the beach, and we're only a mile from the beach, so
That's
usually
true,
I'll
yeah.
just run down there to Reddington or Madeira and try to catch them as they're moving offshore. That's just a personal thing. I mean, I don't think I'd ever sell a lightning picture or want to try, but I enjoy looking at them.
Yeah.
And they're fun. It's like a chase, you know what I mean? Like it's like what's funny with sunsets. I was telling somebody this a while back. Is I said I felt like I lose my creativity with sunsets because I've taken so many. Like I don't. I guess I was bored with it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that was always my go-to. Like I drive down to the beach, catch a sunset, go to the beach. I mean, I could do that all day long, but I'm not really pushing myself. I'm
Yeah.
not learning anything.
That's what happened with the St. Pete skyline. I'm like,
It,
cool. Got a really good one, printed it out for my grandma
they all
as a
look the
Christmas
same.
gift, and I'm like,
They all look the same.
well, all right, time to switch it up.
Recently I just did helped to do an ad for a boat company that a buddy of mine bought, and
Saw those pictures; those looked really
yeah, and it
good.
was. You know what? They asked me to come out on this lake and shoot some pictures of the boats. I've never done that. I had no. I mean, I know how to take pictures, and I know what the setting will be like. But I'm like, I don't know what do boat companies look for. You know what I mean? Like, what do people who buy boats look for when they buy a boat? And so I just did a little research, and we went out there and we took some pictures, and they turned out great. I was happy with them, and they were happy with them. I'm like, and that may lead to something else down the road. You never
Yeah,
know.
word of mouth.
Can't be afraid to take chances.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of have the same thing as you, where I started probably a year ago, maybe two by now, taking photography more seriously, posting once a week. I haven't been posting once a week now, but that's when people started going, "Hey, I do this. Can you take photos
There
of
you
me?"
go.
Sure. And they're just like, "What do you charge?" I'm not.
I don't know.
I'm not gonna say my prices.
Tell them I don't know. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I had to figure that out. I never knew what to charge, and still to this day, sometimes it depends on what's going on with it. Like with this boat shoot, I'm like, I don't even know what I would charge for that, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
I mean, for videos, I'm more comfortable, but even then, it's usually just me, so it's like,
With the advertising side of, I'm terrible at it lately. Like, I got very discouraged on Instagram for a long time. Still probably am a little, and that's why probably I don't post as regularly because I don't feel like I get the feedback on there like it used to be. Like they changed the algorithm or something, and you don't get as many people seeing it or
you,
interacting
you
with it.
have to be posting like twice a week.
And
So
you have to be there a lot, and I don't always have that, I guess, discipline to do it. I don't think about it, and
yeah,
so it gets frustrating because I post a picture where I thought was great, and I'm like, oh, great, 15 people liked it. That's amazing. And I
that's
probably shouldn't even care,
I
but that's what that site's about. You know what I mean?
yeah. It is kind of just like I always go. I'm not about the likes, and then I'm like,
Yeah, we are. We
you,
all
you
are.
know, you said like you see. I think one picture got 10 likes. I'm like, the other one got 100.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this one that bad?
I'd
And then
pass out if I got 100 likes. I wouldn't even know what to do. Like, and then I thought, I'm gonna get it serious. I'm gonna take Instagram serious. I'm gonna see how many followers I can get. That didn't work
yeah,
either.
once you worry about that, then you go down the wrong
So
hole
then you
again.
know what? I just stopped caring about it. I mean, I don't say I don't care about it. I will post. I need to make a commitment to myself to post at least once a week, and I have the last couple weeks. So I give myself credit. So we'll see. It doesn't
Yeah.
really, it's not my main source of income, so I don't really spend that much time worrying about it.
Okay, so you are still fully
I'm still a teacher, yeah,
teacher, and
in the
then
school system, yeah.
photography's on the side. Okay,
Photography's always been a side thing. Although, it's funny because I think I made the revelation about a year ago that I think I could go full time with it. Like, I've been busy,
yeah,
and I've been busy without trying. I mean, when I say that, I just do minimal
right,
advertising.
like people come to you mainly. You're
And
not.
but it. I think when you start building your name, you get your reviews, and when so and so comes from out of town, and they look up photographer near me, and one guy has maybe 4 stars, the other has 5, and 100 reviews, they may be more likely to go to you. And I still have people that contact me like, "What's your prices? I'm in town." And I'll tell them I never hear from them again. And then I have people that are like, "All right, let's do it." And I
Yeah.
try to pride myself on when I interact with families or whoever's in town or whatever it is, that they just have a pleasant experience. What they're great, pictures that they're happy with. But I always tell them, like, I'll give you a money back guarantee. Like, I'll be honest. If you're not happy with these pictures, I don't want you paying for them. And
Interesting.
because I think I'm way more focused on that aspect of them being happy than I am of me getting that money.
That's a good way to look at
Yeah,
it.
and
'Cause
so I just tell people, I'm like, they'll call me and say, how long are we going to be there? I'm like, generally we don't need more than about 45 minutes. I'm there 2 hours sometimes. Like, I'm going to do until we get especially with little kids.
oh,
I had a
okay.
bad streak with little kids for a long time. I've actually got back good with them, but man, they wore me out. Little kids just wore me out for a while, and it's hard because the parent shows up, they have one thing in their mind, the kid has a completely different thing, and the frustration
The kid doesn't
levels.
even know what photo's going
No,
on.
but then the parents get mad, they yell, the kid cries, it ruins the whole thing, and I'm like, listen, relax. All right, we will take as much time as we need to get what we need to get done because we're gonna be wasting our time anyway. So
Yeah,
just give us enough daylight. That's all I ask. If we can show up with enough daylight, give me some stuff to work with, we'll figure it out.
I like that. Your whole concept, because I'm similar. Where somebody asked me if I can shoot something, like went to my friend's wedding last year. And he's like, "Hey, can you set a camera on the tripod?" But I was up there with in the
Yeah.
groomsmen. I was like, "Look, I can't put 100% of my effort into this. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd have to set the camera up like that, stand there, and hope it's recording. And
When I did my first wedding, um, it was for a friend, and so we met before, and I said, "Listen, I'll charge a couple $100, I said, "But understand something. It's my first wedding, so I wasn't nervous about shooting the wedding. I was nervous about ruining their day, and I think if more people went into it with that mindset of this is not about me. I mean, it's about them. This is your special day, and that I think is to me is the nerve wracking part of doing a wedding. You don't get do overs. It's not a portrait where you can read. You
yeah,
got
I
to hit it and
misfocused.
quit
And
it
you
and
redo
keep
it. Yeah,
moving on. And so that's where in that mindset I went into it. And I'm like, listen, I can't. If something messes up, I don't want the pressure of you being so disappointed. And they were so cool. They're like, no, listen, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, and it turned out great. Now it's funny. I look back on those pictures, and I think it was like 5 years ago was my first wedding, and I was like, oh god, I could have should have done them so differently. But that's just me in my mind.
yeah.
They loved them, and that's all that mattered. And I've done more since, but I go into it every time with the same aspect of I'm a little more confident now, but at the same time, I just don't want to mess it up for you. And I tell them, if I mean, like, listen, if we go in there and it doesn't work, I'm not going to charge. I'll give your money back. Like, I just can't. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I did that to you. And I hate it when I hear like these horror stories online about so and so photographer, non-refundable. Like, I don't know if you saw this recently. The lady died, and the fiance, the photographer wouldn't refund the money back to the fiance.
I did
She
not see
died
that.
before the wedding,
Oh my
and
god.
I'm thinking, like, what are you gaining out of that? Like, are you that desperate for your $250 deposit or whatever it was that you? I mean, like,
Yeah,
they're dealing with bigger things in life right now.
yeah. That's not so
I've
important.
actually had a couple come here and we did a photo shoot on the beach and the kid didn't cooperate. We just went back the next night. I'm like, just meet me tomorrow night. We're gonna get this shoot because now I'm determined to get this kid.
Yeah.
All right, these kids are wearing me out, and we did. And but that reflects is what I'm saying is then they're very very apt to leave you a nice review and to refer you to other people, and that's where it's at.
Gotcha.
And I
Yeah.
want them going out and saying, "Oh my God, the experience was amazing." The photos were great, but the experience was just equally as great.
Yeah. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but there's
Oh, I
this.
love TikTok.
Okay.
I hate to admit that. I'm so addicted to TikTok. I got my
It,
wife addicted to it.
it starts out so slow, but and then it builds some more of an addiction. But did you see the photographer on there? I don't know his name. I'm not going to call it out.
Yeah.
But he, as a wedding photographer, you would relate, I guess. This couple is in their wedding stuff. They're getting their photos, and this other photographer runs up. He's like, "Hey, do you mind if we take 5 minutes and I take some photos of you with my camera?"
He ran in on
And
him.
just like ran into this guy's shoe, and it's like
I'll
he's
be
like, "I'll send it to you,"
so
and
upset.
the comments just ruined that
That's
guy.
just
But
that's an a-hole move. I've never experienced that. Thank God. I mean, I probably wouldn't be as polite. You know what I mean? But that's just me.
it took some convincing with the photographer's like, "Okay, fine, I guess."
Why?
And,
What are you trying to do? We're conducting a business here.
yeah.
I mean, I had a run-in on the beach on Indian Rocks Beach with the police with my neighbor and his daughter, and we were just doing a fun shoot, and someone called the police, and for whatever, because it was two grown men and a kid, and it could have been handled so differently, but the officer responding was very much a jerk, and he he yelled at me like I was a child, and so I told him I'm not under investigation for anything. I haven't committed a crime. I'm in the middle of a business transaction. I need you to leave me alone. Well, that made him more mad, and so in the end, I had to call the chief of police, and they were very nice. They apologized, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of doing something. Like, if there was a crime committed or anything, you could have just easily come up and said to me, "Hey, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in the middle of a photo shoot.
Or if you had a speaker and it's like a noise violation or something.
Anything.
Yeah.
But instead, he decides to haul us off the beach to do whatever, and I'm like, sir, there have to be more pressing things for you to deal with right now. Like, somebody obviously complained it was two men with a child. You walk up and see what we're doing. I can easily explain to you or show pictures on the camera of what we've been doing, and we can move on from that. But you didn't go that route. You decided to yell at us and demand things and scream, whatever.
Yeah, there's a right and wrong way to go about things.
But not, when he told me, I said, sir, I mean, it was exactly sunset. I'm like, sir, the sun is setting right now. I don't know what's going on there. He said, oh, you can come back tomorrow night.
Oh.
And I said, so you're telling me that it's going to be the same sunset? Or I mean, I'm a little confused by that statement. And then he got more mad. And I'm like, I need to be quiet. I'm going to end up going to jail for nothing. But I handled it the right way because I did complain. I called and complained. I said, listen, I'm actually conducting a business out here, and I'm being harassed. I said, there were many other people taking pictures. I didn't seem to interrogate them, but
Yeah.
I literally have had this. I was on the beach, and I had a model standing here. I'm taking a picture of, getting a face shot, and someone literally walked between us as I'm shooting, and we were not even 4 feet apart, and they walked right between us. I had to say something. I'm sorry. I could not say nothing on that. I'm like, whoa, yo, man, what's up?
Yeah.
And then they act like they didn't hear me. I'm like, no, you're going to hear me. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's personal. You're just doing that on purpose. I was down at Sunset Beach doing a sunrise shoot on these rocks coming up, and the sun's coming up behind me, right? And so it was looked cool in the clouds. Had the camera set up, and the guy goes and stands right in front of me. And so I'm honestly waiting there about 45 minutes for the light to get right, and he just stands there. And so at first I was like, I'm like, yo, man. And he turned around. I'm like, really? In front of me? And he looks back, and he just stood there. I'm like, no, come on. Now, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm the only one here. You see this camera. Why in front of me? And then he moved on finally.
I've been fortunate enough not to have that, but I have that on the bike trail a lot.
Without
the camera.
Terrible,
Do you get that?
Yeah.
I almost ran over a kid, not on purpose. Not,
I almost got him.
There's a family coming up on my left. There's a little bridge. I don't know if you've been to the Upper Tampa Bay Trail.
Oh yeah.
There's like that three-way split.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up. I just knew this kid was going to do something. He's just like looks back over his shoulder. I'm trying to get some decent speed.
Yeah.
And he just darts out right in front of me. I swerve to the left, and I would never normally curse at a kid, but it just came out.
It just shut out of my mouth.
Like, you gotta watch where you're going. I almost turned around and told the mom, like, you gotta pay attention to your kids.
Oh yeah, it's bad. Since this pandemic started, and I give credit to families. There are so many more families on the trail right now, and that's good. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
but a lot of them never been on there, and they don't understand they're not the only ones on there. And so some of us have been riding that trail for a long time, and and so like you get to riding your bike, and all of a sudden there's a family spread out 8 feet apart,
Yeah.
and they're taking up the whole trail. And I'm like,
This
whatever.
guy has stopped. His bike is on the kickstand halfway in the trail. And he's just talking to his
taking up
buddy.
space,
I look back. What?
taking up
What are you
space.
doing? I get so mad on the bike.
Yeah, you know what? I don't really get aggravated. I got yelled at last weekend on the Courtney Canwell by a lady. She cut in front of us, and we were going pretty fast, but she was. It was two people and her, and so we were kind of. We even yelled out, we're like, "Are on your left!" And as soon as we did, she cut in front of us.
Yep.
And it caused my friend to go off the road because he almost hit her. And she turns and yells at me and says she has the right to be on that road as well. And I said, I agree. You have the right. I'm not arguing with that, but you don't have the right to hurt people. Like, you saw what you did. You did that intentionally to prove a point. And so what if you'd have caused this person to be injured? That's stupid.
Yeah, this whole on your left thing, people just don't get it
No.
sometimes. Wow, we really went off on a tangent there, but I don't know. I guess that's a good place to end things. Where can people find your work?
ShandyGreggPhotography.com or Shandy Gregg Photography on Facebook. I also have Shots by Shandy, which is my real estate side of it,
Okay, I
on
didn't see that
Facebook
one.
and Instagram as well. And it's pretty much the main places.
Okay, and then they
Google.
just hit you up on there to see
Yeah,
your
please do. Yeah.
prices. All
I would
right,
love
cool.
to.
Awesome. Thanks for being on. This was really